I'm going to cover the Hollerin episode. That is when Deputy Mooney discovered the sniper's nest. He said he hollered out the window for the crime lab. And this is from his Warren Commission testimony. And then I says, and he's on the 7th floor at this time. And then I says, I'm going back down on 6. At that time, some news reporter or press, I don't know who he was calming up with a camera, or maybe climbing up with a camera. Of course, he wasn't taking any pictures. He was just looking too, I assume. So as he's going down to the 6th floor, a photographer, who is Tom Allier, is going up to the 7th floor. So I went back down ahead of Officers Vickery and Webster, 2 other deputies. They come in behind me down to the 6th floor. I went straight across to the southeast corner of the building, and I saw all of these high boxes. Of course, they were stacked all the way around over there, and I squeezed between 2, and the minute I squeezed between these 2 stacks of boxes, I had to turn myself sideways to get in there. That is when I saw the expended shells in the boxes that were stacked up looked to be a rest for the weapon. So I leaned out the window, the same window from which the shots were fired, looked down, and I saw Sheriff Bill Decker and Captain Will Fritz standing right on the ground. Well, so I hollered, or signaled, I more or less hollered. I whistled a time or 2 before I got anybody to see me. And yet they was all looking that way, too, except the sheriff. They wasn't looking up. And I told him to get the crime lab officers en route, that I had the location spotted, so I stood guard to see that no one disturbed anything until Captain Will Fritz approached with his group of officers, city officers. At that time, of course, when I hollered, of course, Officers Vickery, Webster, they came across, and later on several other deputies. I believe Officers McCurley, A.D. McCurley, I believe he came over. Where he came from, they was all en route up there, I assume. So when he discovers the sniper's nest, he says he's alone in the sniper's nest. There are other officers on the floor, but he discovers it by himself, and he pokes his head out the window and hollers. And notice that he does not mention Officer Gerry Hill. But according to Gerry Hill, Sergeant Hill, he was also there for the discovery, and this is his Warren Commission account. The boxes were stacked in sort of a 3-sided shield that they would have concealed from general view unless somebody specifically walked up and looked over them. Anyone who was in a sitting or crouched position between them and the window, on the top of the larger stack of boxes that would have been used for concealment, there was a chicken leg bone and a paper sack which appeared to have been about the size normally used for a lunch sack. Then on the floor near the baseboard or against the baseboard of the south wall of the building, in front of the second window, in front of the, well, we would have to say second window from the east corner, there were 3 spent shells. At this point, I asked the deputy sheriff. So he says he's with a deputy, which we would assume would be Mooney, to guard the scene, not to let anybody touch anything. And I went over still further west to another window, about the middle of the building on the south side, and yelled down the street for them to send the crime lab. Not knowing or not getting any indication from the street that they heard me, I asked the deputies again to guard the scene, and I would go down and make sure that the crime lab was en route. So it's a different story. He's with Deputy Mooney. Not in Mooney's story he's not, but in Gerry's story he's there. And he doesn't, for what reason he does not say, he does not yell out the sniper's nest window. He goes away from there to another window. And we do have photography of Gerry Hill, Sergeant Hill, sticking his head out a window on the 6th floor. I believe this is credited as a Murray photo, and this one is credited as an Allen photo, and this one is a Kimbrough photo. And they all show somebody, and 2 of them you can identify. It's Gerry Hill. In the Kimbrough photo, it's not, you can't identify who that is, but it's consistent with it being Gerry Hill. And they're all in this window that's next to the sniper's nest window. Now, there are plenty of stories about the discovery of the sniper's nest that are contradictory about the time and who was present and all that, but nothing disputes the fact that Mooney is the first one who found it, except Gerry Hill's story. And there's no police officer anyway, or deputy, who says that Gerry Hill found it, except Gerry Hill. In fact, there's no law officer who ever mentions Gerry Hill being in the building at all, even though Hill mentions going into the building. He mentions the names of other officers. None of them on the record ever said he was there. I don't think anybody denied that he was there, but nobody ever said that he was. But we do have Steve Peringer, a reporter, a radio reporter, and a photographer, saying that Gerry Hill leaned out a window and yelled out the discovery of the sniper's nest, apparently.
What floor was it on, Steve? Gerry Hill with the Dallas Police Department just leaned out a window there. It looked to me like he was on the 4th floor and told police to call the Dallas Crime Laboratory to the scene. Apparently they found some shells there in that room here in the Texas School Book Depository building at Elm and Field Street. So other police officers currently had the scene surrounded, while still more with shotguns are searching out the building at this time. But there have been some shells found, I believe, on the 4th floor in the police crime lab, currently en route to the scene as the search continues.
I'm not sure what to think of that, but Steve Peringer, the guy who we just heard say that, died at the age of 27. Peringer was burned over most of his body when a 5,000-gallon gasoline storage tank exploded during a fire at Kennedale, Texas, service station on August 1st, 1968. Peringer died the following day in the hospital. He had been filming the fire scene from less than 50 yards away when the explosion sent a ball of flames 125 feet into the air, witnesses said. But anyway, as we heard here in this David Von Pine upload, Steve Peringer apparently on the day of the assassination said that Gerry Hill was hollering out a window at some point. It's not clear at what point, though you can hear apparently it's a fire engine arriving in the background. Maybe that can be pinpointed, I don't know. But still then, even the time of Gerry's hollering out the window can't be pinpointed with this, I don't think. And now I'm going to focus on Tom Allier, the photographer, that according to Mooney, he doesn't name Allier, but that's who it has to be, was going up to the 7th floor, just as Mooney, was going down to the 6th floor, just before Mooney discovered the sniper's nest. Now, in this collection of photographs, the window circled in red is the window that Tom Allier opened to take photography from when he was on the 7th floor. The green circled window is the window that Gerry Hill opened to do his hollering from. And we can see at 12:40 in number 1, both windows are closed. In picture number 2, which I can't put a time on precisely, Tom Allier's window is open, but Gerry Hill's window is closed. In picture number 3, a Skaggs photo, Tom Allier can be seen in the window, sticking his head out with his camera, and Gerry Hill's window is still closed. And in picture number 4, at a time after Allier has left his window and closed it again, Gerry Hill's window is open, but nobody is there. And in the Kimbrough photo, when Gerry is hollering, we can see that the Tom Allier window is closed. So what this means is that Tom Allier is not filming from the 7th floor while Gerry Hill is hollering out his window. And here, looking at Tom Allier's film, presumably taken from the 7th floor, we can see the hollering event. We can't see Mooney, but we can see people reacting to the hollering event. And here, circled in green, is the witness Robert Edwards as he's being taken to the sheriff's department, and he just turned around and looked up because Mooney is hollering out of the window. And there's very obviously the guy circled in red is also looking up there, and I'm not sure who that is. And here we can see Sergeant Harkness. We can tell it's Harkness because he's the sergeant with the white thing in his right back pocket, which I've circled here. Sergeant Harkness is going to his motorcycle because he's going to radio in the discovery of the crime scene. So the Alibi film fits the Mooney story, and that means that Mooney was hollering while Alibi was filming from the 7th floor window. And when Hill is hollering, Alibi is not filming from the 7th floor window. So that means that Hill hollered at a different time than Mooney. And I can't prove exactly how far in time these events are separated, but the implication is that the Hill story is not true, that he did not immediately go to some other window and holler when the sniper's nest was discovered. And I've always thought that this photo looks posed, that Hill is more interested in posing for the camera than he is in hollering anything to the people down below. And this is something I put together. The top part is from the Kimbrough photo, and the bottom part is one of those pictures on the left, credited to Allen, with another picture that I've put together with it that was obviously taken just after that photo of the sniper's nest window, and I've put them in together so to make this comparison. Now it's a different camera angle than the Kimbrough photo, but those boxes I think should be visible in the Allen photo, and they're not, in the sniper's nest window. And there's actually somebody standing there in the sniper's nest window in the Allen photo. You can see his face. That might be Deputy Mooney, but I'm very suspicious that this photography was not taken on the day of the assassination. But I can't prove that it wasn't. But I think it looks weird. I don't think it looks right. I think there's something wrong there. That is what I suspect is that the Kimbrough photo on top, that was taken on the day of the assassination. But you can't identify Hill in that photography. So I think possibly the Allen photos were taken at some other day, carefully matching the shadows, that is, doing it at the right time of day, but that this was constructed to support Gerry Hill's story that he hollered from the window, and that they might even have Deputy Mooney standing there in the sniper's nest window. But I don't think that's right. You should see the gun rest boxes in the Allen photo below, and you don't. So I think this is some kind of trick to give Gerry support for his story. And I think the coup de grace here is the necktie. This is Gerry Hill arriving at the Texas Schoolbook Depository. And this is a frame, apparently from just after that in this film. And it shows Gerry's necktie. You notice you can see the front and the back piece here because the front piece is swayed off to his left a little bit. But looking in the posed Allen photo, as I call it, you can see that back piece of the necktie is very short in comparison to the front piece. You can't see the entire length of the front piece, but I think very obviously the back piece of the necktie is much longer when he's coming in the building than when he's hollering out the window. And if it's the same necktie, what this would have to mean is that he retied it after he got in the building. And why would he do that? I think what it means is that the window photograph was taken on a different day than the photograph of him arriving. And I think he probably really did get into a window and holler, but that he didn't do it at the same time as Mooney, and because in the Kimbrough photo you can't identify him, that he wanted a picture where you could identify him, and that this photograph was taken later. and I think it's part of his Oak Cliff alibi, but that's another video.